What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another gaming channel. My name is AJ Gels. How y'all doing? We are back once more with the weekly show. I believe this is episode 123, I believe. If you're new to this program, basically what I do, I sit here, I go through some news that came out throughout the week in the realm of video games. Sometimes, like last week, when there's light on news, maybe I'll pick a certain topic or a game to talk about. Last week was Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We spent some time, we watched some gameplay for that. This week, don't really have any videos. I have some smaller news stories that I thought would be fun to talk about. I also threw in this one from last week about Anthem. So we're going to sit here. This should be a pretty light week. Probably not going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on each individual topic. But I think we got some fun stuff here. And, excuse me. And to kick things off, let's see here. Anthem underperforming won't mean the end of BioWare, excuse me, geez, I cannot speak. Says James Olin. Article, Thomas Francesi, something like that, here on DualShockers. Good website that I really need to start following on Twitter. Let's see here. Article reads, some notable staff have left BioWare during the development of Anthem. Most recently, senior designer James Olin left after being with the company through thick and thin for over 22 years. While some are worried about BioWare and think that EA will close it if Anthem doesn't do amazingly, right here, especially after the disappointment of Mass Effect Andromeda, James Olin doesn't think that's the case. See, it's nice to hear this from somebody who's inside of BioWare, or who's been inside of BioWare, to tell us this. But I still have that, I don't know, I still have that fear. And I'm not going to put the blame on BioWare. Well, I'm not going to put a majority of the blame on BioWare. I think there is some stuff to say about Mass Effect Andromeda and the development practices that kind of went into that game, and just there's some stuff to be said about that on BioWare's part. But I think EA, again, I think EA, my bigger problems with EA, and I've covered that a lot in previous episodes, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past EA to, they've had a couple dud projects, and shutter the studio. Especially that I think BioWare games kind of come out, I'm not going to say they're far and few between, but they take a couple of years in between. You know, I would not surprise me to see a company like EA shutter BioWare after I think they've kind of put out. A lot of people weren't massive fans of Inquisition. I still liked it, but I think some people would say that was a little more lackluster, and then Andromeda happens, and then if Anthem kind of tanks, I think there's an argument there, at least from EA's perspective. In a recent interview with Game Informer after his departure, Olin touched on both his new tabletop game, Odyssey the Dragon Lords, I need to look at that, and BioWare's Anthem. While he does still say that BioWare and EA want Anthem to be successful, he doesn't believe that EA will shut the studio down if it underperforms, as they see BioWare as a, and I quote, long-term part of the company, end quote. If Anthem doesn't do great, James Olin says BioWare will just learn from its mistakes and apply it to their next title. Let's see here. And I quote, no, the more success the studio has, the more freedom and resources it has. So obviously BioWare wants to have success with Anthem because that will be good for the studio as a whole. However, I think EA is looking for BioWare to be a long-term part of the company. I think EA really respects what BioWare brings to it. BioWare is a lot different than all the other aspects of its business, so even if Anthem doesn't do well, and I think it's going to be great, but if it doesn't do gangbusters, I don't think that's the end of BioWare. I think it will simply be a chance for BioWare to learn some lessons and apply it to the next game that comes out. End quote. See, and this is where I'm going to touch on a few things here. And this is what kind of makes me after seeing Anthem like in action, I have to say I'm a lot more interested in the game than I was. But it's still, BioWare is known for that, for RPGs, and now they're dropping something like Anthem, which still kind of an RPG, but I think it's almost an entirely different beast what they're doing. This is very off of what the studio is known for. So yeah, when it's like, well, we're going to learn some lessons and then apply them to their other games, I would actually argue that you shouldn't do that. Because, again, I think BioWare has a formula that works for their games. I think they've tried to veer off of it too much as opposed to evolving their formula. They're kind of trying to radically change it. because I mean, you can notice it. I think Inquisition was changed maybe a little too much in certain places, but I mean, Mass Effect was extremely different from how previous Mass Effects were, and how I could barely even see the formula of a Mass Effect game, or even a BioWare game, in Mass Effect Andromeda. Anthem, again, I'm not sure how much they can pull off of Anthem and apply it to their other titles. That's my biggest thing, and that's what I'm not really seeing what he's talking about, what they can learn from Anthem and bring to like a Dragon Age or another Mass Effect. Excuse me. Now, on the other hand, that EA, let me see here, it was up here, long-term part of the company. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, he would know better than I would. I'm not going to lie, because he's probably worked a lot closer to EA. This is from an outsider looking in perspective. But I don't see EA seeing BioWare that way. I think they see the IPs that BioWare has as useful. Because, I mean, BioWare has made, in my opinion, one of the greatest video game RPGs ever, and that was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I still love that game to this day. I mean, then they made the Mass Effect trilogy, they've made the Dragon Age games. I think these IPs are just so well known right now in the industry that I think that's what they love. And if BioWare can't deliver on them, I think they'll drop BioWare in a heartbeat. I think that's what it is. And I think with Mass Effect Andromeda, and I think, like I said, I don't remember Inquisition even doing that well in sales. I think BioWare could be in more trouble than Olin might realize. But again, this is also, like I said, from an outsider perspective. So, take what I say with a grain of salt. He also had the following kind words to say about how Anthem plays and how people will be surprised by it. And I quote, "Just for those people worried, I know that Anthem is looking amazing. I think people will be very surprised when Anthem comes out next year at what they've been able to do with the game. It's got some incredibly talented people working on it, and it's going to be a great experience," end quote. Anthem is currently set for release for PC, PS4, and Xbox One on February 22nd, 2019, along with, I think, 2 other games. And you can pre-order it on Amazon for more Anthem content. All this stuff. I pretty much said everything that I have on this game in previous videos. It's like I said. I mean, while this is comforting to somebody who is kind of thinking, "Ooh, BioWare might be in trouble," this is a little comforting to me. It doesn't completely get rid of my fears that Anthem is completely safe from EA. I still can't bring my head around that. I still can't get away from my fear. And again, maybe it's because I'm a pessimist. Maybe because I always see the worst in things. Well, I guess that's kind of synonymous with being a pessimist. But I still have fears that if Anthem tanks, BioWare could be in trouble. So, I don't know. As always, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. There'll also be links and timestamps and everything, as usual, in the description if you'd like to go to these places. Please always remember, go visit these sites. These are the people who do the real journalism. I'm some punk who sits in a room and an apartment and just gives his takes on stuff. So, please, as always, go visit these sites, give them clicks, help them exist. So, there we go. Next article coming to us also by way of DualShockers. By Logan Moore, Insomniac Games says there are no plans to make another Resistance game. Insomniac Games is gearing up to launch the long-awaited Marvel Spider-Man next month on September 7th, but some fans are still holding out hope that following this release, the studio might return to the Resistance property. Judging from some recent quotes, though, it seems you shouldn't get your hopes up too much. In a recent conversation with Finder, Insomniac's community director James Stevenson was asked about the possibility of seeing the studio one day return to the world of Resistance, the PS3-era first-person shooter. Stevenson said that while he would never count it out, he doesn't think it's very likely. Which, oh wow, that's actually even worse than what I was about to say. I was about to say, we're not going to rule it out, but we don't have anything planned at the moment. That usually means no. What this means is pretty much hell no. This is basically saying I don't think it's very likely. That it's like keeping that like 1% open that maybe we do another one, but no, I think that's saying this franchise is dead. It's gone. It's no more Resistance games. See here, and I quote, "Oh wow, if I was a betting man, it feels like it's a long shot to me, but I have learned over the years to never say never," there it is, to think there are a lot of people out there that have fond memories of a Resistance game from the PS3 era, but yeah, never say never, it's just that we have no plans to make another Resistance game in the future, end quote. I see Resistance kind of like... also, this game, played it, was god-awful. Story was good, the controls were just absolute crap, but that's the PSP's fault, not necessarily the game. What was I talking about? Oh, right, another PS3 era game that I kind of see having like the same sort of vibe is Infamous. Loved Second Son, but since then, I think Sucker Punch has been just dead quiet on that title, and I'd love to see another one. I know different studios, but I think some of these PS3 era games that we remember so strongly, I don't think we're really going to see another one. I think Killzone is again another property that I would be very surprised to see another title in the franchise. So here, Stevenson was then asked whether or not he thought there was a chance for another developer to take over the Resistance reins, but he said that the decision would be up to Sony since they own the IP. And I quote, "I'm not sure. Obviously, other developers made the portable versions for the PSP. 2009's Resistance Retribution by Ben Studio. Game sucked. The problem was you had to control because the PSP didn't have two sticks and only had the left thumbstick, so you had to control looking up, down, left, right, and all that with the with square, triangle, circle, and X, or I guess cross, depending on who you are. But yeah, good story, but holy crap, that thing was hard to play. And Vita 2012's Resistance Burning Skies. Actually, never played it by Instig. I don't know how to pronounce that studio's name. Back in the day, it's actually Sony that owns the IP and owns the universe. So I guess if they were really passionate about making Resistance 4 and we couldn't or didn't want to do it, Sony could totally engage another developer, but that would be up to Sony, not us. End quote. This is kind of like me and a lot of people want to see Sunset Overdrive return. Similar thing. Who owns that IP? Is that Insomniac or is that Microsoft? There we go. Does Microsoft own that IP or does Insomniac own that IP? Because god damn it, I want another Sunset Overdrive. Sorry, I got lost in my own head there. So I'll try to keep that from happening. The last mainline game in the series, Resistance 3, was released by Insomniac in 2011, and while it was well received critically, it didn't do gangbusters in terms of sales. The second article in a row I've seen that word. I mean, I use it because of Archer, the show, but interesting. In terms of sales, because of the reasons, it's obvious why Sony hasn't bothered to bring the series into the PS4 era. Personally, I'd love to one day see Resistance return, as it was one of my favorite shooter franchises of last gen. That said, I really think there's a good chance that the series might actually be dead, and that breaks my heart. I think that's true. Yeah, I would argue for a series like Resistance, which I think is maybe not one of the more well-known. I mean, I don't want to say it's not a well-known Sony franchise, because it is. It is a well-known Sony shooter franchise. But I don't see it as a how to put it. I think there's a lot of people who never played it. Me being one of them. I never played the original. I never played either any of the 1, 2, or 3. I never played any of the Resistance games because I didn't own a PS3. I was a 360 owner last gen. This is the first generation of consoles that I've owned both platforms. So I think that there's a better argument that instead of re-release or instead of coming out with Resistance 4 off the bat, re-release the franchise on next-gen platforms. I mean, it might be available. Do kind of like what they did with Far Cry 3, which I'm playing right now. Love it on the PS4 with the Classic Edition. Do something like that. I think that's the better bet to also kind of gauge sales. I've said the same thing about the Yakuza franchise. I think they're doing something. They're trying to bring all the games to the West because of, I think because technically right now for the West, you could play 1, 2, 0, technically Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2, but I still count those like 1 and 2, and 6. 3, 4, 5 were PS3 titles that I don't think you can play on next gen. Sorry, I'm again, I'm kind of tangenting, but I'm trying to make a larger point that I think the best thing for this franchise moving forward, at least from a fan perspective, that we could see is it being brought as maybe like a collection or a remastered trilogy or whatever on this gen platform, or maybe the next gen platform, seeing that there's some speculation that this generation is ending. I still don't see that happening. I see the next console generation around 2023, 2022. I still think these consoles have about another 4 or 5 years left in them, but that's, another discussion. But I think the best thing to be looking for is these games to be coming out as a re-released pack this generation, and then that being used to gauge sales and see if there's enough interest in a fourth title. So that's my take on this. Now, this is something that I never. This is kind of like the title of the video. I never knew how much I wanted this. Survival RPG Digimon Survive is part Fire Emblem, part visual novel. Article by Jordan Remy, I'm not entirely sure, of GameSpot. The article reads, Digimon Survive is an upcoming survival RPG developed in celebration of the 20th anniversary of the popular Digimon anime. The game presents an original adventure separate from the show, with characters designed by Yuichi Yukumo and music composed by Tomoki Miyoshi, who's composed for games like Soul Calibur 5 and I Am Setsuna. Digimon Survive tells the story of 4 teenagers getting lost while on a camping trip and stumbling into a new world inhabited by digital monsters. Players control the leader of the group, Takuma Momozuka, who's partnered with Agumon. Each of Takuma's friends find Digimon partners of their own, and together the group works together to find a way for the teens to get back home again. Their adventure won't be easy, though, as Digimon Survive's new trailer promises, the game features darker themes of death and destruction, elements that haven't really been seen in Digimon since Digimon Tamers. See, that is one thing that makes me fall in love, because Digimon Tamers was a really dark as shit series. Like, I would say I think the darkest Digimon ever got, and holy hell, it was good. Like, Tamers, I think, might be my favorite overall Digimon. And again, I like the original when they were all the kids, all of them were kids, and then they grew up. And then we had the second season after they got out of the digital world. And then you had the next guy because what that was. I'm trying to remember how everything went. It was you had the Dark Gears in the original season. The second season, I think, were Rings. And then they brought in the new cast with the fusion guys with Vmon and all of them. You had kind of like the next class, who then also met up with Tai and all the original Digimon cast, and they were fighting. I think they were the Dark Towers, or the Towers and Rings, other way around. I can't remember exactly. And then after all of those guys came Tamers. And I thought Tamers, I just think flat out was the best, because I mean it was dark, it was well written. Granted, Garomon was really annoying, but whatever. I'm sorry, I just nerded out on cartoons. I like these themes, and I think this is actually kind of the Pokemon game that I've always wanted, and I'll explain why. I've always had this idea for a survival game set in the Pokemon world, where you get Pokemon, but you have to eat and you have to feed the Pokemon. And like, say you get somewhere and you have no food, you can actually kill one of your Pokemon and eat them for food. It kind of dark, and people look at me like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, but think how freaking cool that would be." It's just, it's dark. It's more of a grown-up version of Pokemon. And I think Digimon has always kind of been that way. It's not necessarily been about catching them all. I think this article gets into it a little bit later. it's about the connection between the human and the Digimon partner and everything. So I think this is going to have a very human element to it. The fact that the Digimon speak English and, well, I guess speak the language of their partner. They have their own personalities. I think this game could be really cool from a survival element and a combat element, depending on what. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but you see, like they said, it's very Fire Emblem-esque. I really hope I can get out of these pictures. There we go. Sorry, I know this is annoying. Like taking a look at this, and God, of course they're all in Japanese. Yeah, okay. See, I like the art style here. How it's not they aren't 3D models. How they're drawn, moving about. I think it's simplistic, but I think it works very, again, like Fire Emblem-esque. Now we're getting into picture where it's kind of like a visual novel. Where this aspect is making me think something like I don't know why I'm now looking at Evo shit. Those pictures, like these end half outside of combat I can definitely see where it's Fire Emblem-esque. It's based on the grid, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics. But this stuff reminds me so heavily of Danganronpa, which I'm totally on board with. I love Danganronpa. If I have all 3 games on my Vita, absolutely love them. I don't have that. I don't have some of the other ones. Like, I have the mainline ones where it's the real Danganronpa, not the weird offshoots. So here, sorry, I nerded / was giving opinions. I can't even remember where I was going with any of that. I'm so sorry. The new trailer showcases the 2 different styles of gameplay present in Digimon Survive. Parts of the game will play out as a visual novel where the player determines what choices Takuma makes, how the character's Digimon partners digivolve, and the final ending of the game is dependent on what dialogue options and actions players choose. The rest of Digimon Survive is a turn-based strategy game. Players move their character's team of Digimon across the battlefield to fight against enemy monsters, the ability to digivolve or warp digivolve, and fight more powerful foes, dependent on the character's bonds with one another. The last Digimon game, Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, is a role-playing game for PS4 and PS Vita. Hacker's Memory is more of a traditional RPG where players collect Digimon for turn-based battles. Although the mechanics are solid, the game feels more in line with with the Pokemon anime, collection over connection, which goes against Digimon's theme of bonding with a chosen partner. Digimon Survive seems to be more in line with what the Digimon anime is about. Digimon Survive is launching for Xbox One, PS4, PC, and Switch in 2019. I know what I'm buying that for. Hello, game for my Switch. But no, I think that's spot on. I think putting that connection, I like the way they put that, collection over connection, or in this case, this is going to be connection over collection. I think that is the proper way to do a Digimon game, and I think and when I retweeted this article, I think I put out something like, if done right, this game has, if done right, this game could be absolutely phenomenal. And I really hope that's what we get when this game comes out, and I really cannot wait till we get some more firm details on this game. All right, now on to a series that I absolutely love. I'm a massive Assassin's Creed fan. Honestly, and this is really weird, I'm having a lot of trouble getting super hyped for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm having a lot of trouble getting hyped for this, and which is weird because I absolutely love Assassin's Creed. Maybe it's the new gameplay vibe that they're going, because we'll get into that with this article. But it's I honestly think, which I'm really hoping this is all it is. It's not like I'm getting some sort of premonition that this game is going to blow. I'm trying to think where I'm trying to go with this. Like I said, I hope it's not like my body telling the back of my mind saying, "Oh, this game looks like it's gonna suck." I really think it's just there's so many great titles leading up to that. I mean, we have Valkyria Chronicles 4, we have Spider-Man, we have I think Red Dead comes out before it. I mean, we have a lot of really great stuff coming out before that. So I'm more kind of looking at the near future as opposed to this comes out early November, late October. Around that time, but either way, let's get into this. Assassin's Creed Odyssey's combat abilities offer powerful choices, article John Ryan of IGN. In fully embracing the RPG genre, Assassin's Creed Odyssey has put player choice front and center across the board. This doesn't just apply to the branching story and new romance options. I'm really curious to see how that's going to work. But also in the way you fight and the skills you bring onto the battlefield. We recently sat down with Odyssey's game director Scott Phillips to discuss the redesigned fight mechanics and the addition of customizable combat abilities into the series. All right, from what we've seen of this game so far, I think I like to compare games to other games just because I think it gives me an idea of what I could be looking at. If anybody remembers the Jason and the Argonauts RPG, this shrieks that to me. Or I mean, it's going to be a little different. I mean, because there's got to be, like climbing, and it's got to still be an Assassin's Creed game. There's definitely going to be more open. But I mean, the idea of this Greek world with the branching narrative and player choice and everything, it screams that Jason and the Argonauts RPG, which I would argue is actually a pretty good game at the end of the day. But overall, I mean, this is obviously the continuation of what they were trying to do with Origins, what they were trying to do with Syndicate and Unity. This has been where the Assassin's Creed franchise has been going for the longest time, is becoming more of a true RPG and getting out of that action-adventure genre. So, and I quote, "The core of the fight in Assassin's Creed Odyssey is based on top of the redesigned fight from Assassin's Creed Origins. So it's very focused on being aggressive and being active, so you're dodging a lot, parrying a lot." He says, continuing, "There's less hanging back, less turtling, and more out there in the fight being aggressive," end quote. See, the only thing I really hope they change is putting your attacks on R1 and R2. That was my one big problem with it. I do not like that control scheme. And I don't like it in just about any game I play that has it. It's something about it I just don't like. How aggressive you want to be is, of course, up to you, and there are 3 different trees of special abilities you can unlock, each of which focus on a specific aspect of combat, from brutal melee moves to stealth or ranged attacks. And I quote, "Do you want to focus on more melee abilities, or do you want to focus on assassin skills, or do you want to be more of the hunter, the ranger play style? You can mix and match those, map them on your controller where you want them, upgrade them how you want to upgrade them, where you want to put your focus and your ability points earned from increasing your level through XP." He continues, All of that leads to the player being able to break down a situation, evaluate what's in front of them, adjust their abilities and their gear in order to maximize the way that they like to play. End quote. Watch the video. Blah 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 blah. Well, I mean, again, this is like an evolution of what I think Origins did so well in kind of shaking up the Assassin's Creed mold. I'm very interested to see with this, because I'm kind of surprised that they're doing that they're doing one the year after Origins. I thought they were going to kind of go to a Sorry, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember. Is it biannual? Is it biannual or biennial? I think it's biannual, every 2 years. Or every other year. I think that's biannual. No, biannual is twice a year. Biennial, I think, is... Either way, doing one every other year. That's what I'm trying to say. I thought they were going to do more of that style as opposed to doing one this year. So I'm a little worried about that. I'm not going to lie. But from what they're saying, like let's use the skill tree for example. Origins had a 3-layer skill tree. We had I can't remember what there was combat, skills with the bow, and him being a magi. I can't remember the name of that one, but there were 3 trees that all kind of went together. But for the most part, they gave you little buffs or little boosts in different ways, or gave you the ability to do certain things. It's kind of like Far Cry 3, where you have the 3 different skill trees, and in this one you have more takedowns, like you can take down from the bottom or from above or whatever, and this one has more out-and-out shooting combat, and this has more stealth abilities, whatever. It's sort of like that, where it was more about basically giving you buffs and access to new abilities that can be used at any time. This seems like it's going to be a more prototypical RPG in which you have to decide what you want and map abilities to your controller. It's not like, oh, well, now I can assassinate from a ledge. No, it's I have to equip this ability to be able to do this particular action or movement. I think that's a very interesting way to go about it, and this is definitely going to be a first for an Assassin's Creed game. And honestly, and again, it's kind of like with what I said about the Digimon RPG. If done right, this could be absolutely amazing. And honestly, this has the potential to turn this franchise on its head. I would argue about just about as much as I think Origins did compared to the other Assassin's Creed games. I think this has immense potential. All right, so moving on to our final article of the day. Man, I'm getting winded just sitting here. I gotta start running, and I mean this is a fairly lengthy one. This is on Spider-Man, the upcoming Insomniac Spider-Man coming out September 7th. We're almost about a month away, and I cannot freaking wait. This is really interesting because this takes a look at the man behind the mask. This takes a look at Peter Parker. So Peter Parker is Spider-Man on PS4's Greatest Strength article, Andrew Goldfarb of IGN. If you show a picture of Marvel's Spider-Man to someone for the first time, they're likely to notice one thing: the suit. Insomniac has created a brand new look for Spider-Man that's entirely unique but immediately recognizable, its own spin on a hero we've been following for decades. Oh, God. I haven't taken a drink in a little bit. My mouth's getting dry. But while it's true that the suit may catch your eye first, spending real time with the game reveals what's underneath is just as important. For all the work that's gone into making a new look for Spider-Man, Insomniac has put equal work into Peter Parker, giving the man behind the mask new depth and instant relatability that defies the character. Note that you can check out new Spider-Man gameplay and hear our impressions of it in the video, blah, 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 blah. A more mature hero. Playing the opening hours of Marvel Spider-Man's, we meet a Peter Parker who's been doing this for years instead of an awkward teen discovering his powers. Peter is in his 20s and knows exactly what he's capable of. See, this is the first time, though, that I've heard that he's in his 20s. When they said he's like 1 or 2 years, a couple years into being Spider-Man, I thought we were still dealing with like maybe 18, 19-year-old Peter, not 20, 21, 22-year-old Peter. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Just because from all the Spider-Man media that I've consumed, which is mostly a lot of cartoons and movies, not barely any of the comics. So just throwing that out there. Peter's always either been an adult or he has been that kind of dorky teenager, which I like the dorky teenager. I love that stuff. And I like the stuff with the adult. I'm talking like was it a 60? When was that cartoon? The one with the techno opening. I can never remember what decade that cartoon came out. That was a great cartoon. The Tobey Maguire one really didn't spend a lot of, I think that was probably, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is probably the closest to him being in his early 20s. And even then, I mean, the Tobey Maguire one was still basically an awkward high schooler, even into the series. I think the only time that changed was when he had the Venom suit and was kind of acting like a jackass. Oh, God, the third Spider-Man movie. Let's ignore that and keep going here. Playing the opening hours of Marvel Spider-Man, we meet a Peter Parker. Oh, wait, we already read that. With all those skills on full display, the story begins with a mission that feels like the ending to a game you didn't play. After years of battling against Wilson Fisk, Peter swings in to finally take him down. Following a lengthy infiltration of Fisk Tower and a multi-stage boss fight, he succeeds. Fisk is defeated and the city is saved. Good job, Peter. But as Fisk heads into police custody, he gives Spider-Man a warning. He was keeping the criminals in New York in order. Without a big bad, Fisk says the city will fall into chaos within a month. Okay, the kind of the thing of when you have like the mob boss who's keeping order, but now that you've removed the mob boss, well, now everybody's going to fight to be the new boss. That's kind of how that kind of works. Peter laughs off the warning with a one-liner, but the statement rings true. This is where Peter's struggle, which is also Spider-Man's struggle, begins. Speaking in our demo, creative director Brian Intihar explains the game's driving principle, something suggested early on in the project by Marvel Games creative director Bill Roseman. And I quote, "I'll never forget, I circled this one thing he said to me." Intihar remembers, "The best Spider-Man stories are where are when Peter's world and Spider-Man's world collide. That's driven every single thing we've done in the game, end quote. The power vacuum created by the fall of Kingpin becomes a problem for Spider-Man, but it's also a problem for Peter. He's juggling a full-time job alongside his superhero duties, as well as his relationship with Aunt May, and his sort of relationship with ex-girlfriend Mary Jane. Ooh, interesting, ex-girlfriend. Are we maybe going to get like a Gwen Stacy thing? Or see, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. It feels weird to me having a Spider-Man who's not kind of dealing with his girlfriend, whatever, with Mary Jane, his on again, off again relationship with Mary Jane, or whatever happens with Gwen Stacy. That's weird to me, not having that. Although I guess having him being have the ex-girlfriend thing with Mary Jane, it kind of now he has to deal with probably emotions that are left over. The kind of the awkwardness of. It was easy for me dealing with my ex-girlfriend because she would never return a call. Sorry, that has nothing to do with this. Just revealing my problems. But no, I think that could be interesting. Although it does kind of make me sad that we're maybe not going to see any like weird running into a date, out of breath because sorry I'm late. I was fighting crime. Whatever. While this is a dynamic we've seen before, Insomniac has added new twists. Rather than working as a humble reporter, Peter works in a lab on projects that he believes are actually important. Work isn't a burden that he needs to maintain his cover, but something he truly believes in and is passionate about. There's been a few. I'm trying to remember which Spider-Man. I can't remember what Spider-Man. It was a Spider-Man game I played a while ago. I can't remember which one because I played a lot of Spider-Man games that had a similar had him in a similar position. Let's see here, and I quote: "For 8 years, he's been saving the city." Oh, 8 years! I thought it was like 1 or 2 years in. No, never mind what I said earlier then. For 8 years, he's been saving the city as Spider-Man, but for the first time, he starts to think through his work that he can actually make a difference in the city, in the world, but this time as Peter Parker, end quote, Interhor told us. Peter has also grown more mature in his relationships with other people. This isn't a cocky kid ready to take on the world. He's a seasoned hero who's learned from his mistakes, his relationships, and his attitudes have evolved in his 8 years of fighting crime. A scene early in the game sees Peter trying to distract Aunt May while her co-workers set up a surprise party behind her. While it's initially played for laughs, it eventually leads to a heartfelt moment between the two, one that shows what kind of support system Peter has built. And I quote, "He starts to understand it's okay to lean on people." Intar said, "It's okay to ask for help even if you are a successful superhero," end quote. Peter especially learns from his relationship with his mentor, whose identity we won't spoil here, but as Peter matures and potentially grows into someone who can be seen as a mentor himself, learning when to listen and to trust people is something that will serve him well. And I quote, "In many ways, the story is his next coming-of-age story. This is his journey to becoming an adult," end quote, Intihar said. Okay, so this is less of the origin kind of where we're truly becoming a hero. We've established ourselves as a hero, but now but we're still kind of a kid. This is us. This is more of a, I think, like he said, I think coming of age is, I think, the best way to put this. This is a true him becoming a man. This is him becoming an adult in more than just being a superhero. I think this is him being more mature. Again, the maturing process of him as a person, him as a superhero, him in everything. I think that's the idea. At least that's from what I'm reading. Of course, no Spider-Man game can be entirely about Peter Parker, and you'll spend plenty of time swinging through the city as his costume alter ego. As we wrote about at E3, Insomniac absolutely nails what it feels like to be Spider-Man. Playing the game's first 3 hours, every movement as Peter feels pitch perfect, from swinging across the city to landing a punch on a potential jewelry store thief. Sorry, I'm running out of breath here. Jesus. In our demo, we also experimented with unlocking alternate suits, which you'll be able to craft after researching a specific point in the story. Reaching a specific point in the story, sorry. Each time your player gains a level, you can see the unlock conditions for a new suit in the pause menu. Suits we saw during our session included Peter's Noir suit, yes, Scarlet Spider suit, Secret War suit, and many others. Each suit you unlock gives you a special ability. For example, the Scarlet Spider suit lets you project holographic decoys for enemies to attack, but once you've unlocked an ability, you can use it with any suit. Oh, that's interesting. Suits are unlocked using different combinations of tokens, which come in many varieties. To name a few, you'll earn crime tokens for stopping petty street-level crimes, landmark tokens for taking pictures of famous NYC locales, and base tokens for taking out hideouts where enemies are gathered. See, I think that's interesting. So basically, if I unlock a suit because I like its ability, but I don't like its look, I can still have that ability on another suit that I'd prefer to use for the look. Personally, I like I'm really glad that the Noir suit is in this game, just because I love Spider-Man Noir. I love the concept, but the suit's kind of drab. Like, I'm really loving the new Spider-Man suit that they've made for this game. So that's kind of cool that I can play it in that suit. Or again, if I'm reading this correctly and understanding it correctly, I can wear the Spider-Man suit that they've designed for this game, but also be... But also have all the work that I put into getting these other suits, it was still worth my time. You can also earn backpack tokens for finding long-forgotten bags Peter left throughout the city in his early days. Each of these also contains a fun memento you can view in the pause menu. Among a few we found were a restaurant menu for Peter's first date with Mary Jane and a vial, containing the remains of Sandman. Speaking of Mary Jane, Spidey isn't the only hero you'll play as. In one segment of our demo, we also had a chance to briefly play as MJ. As you might expect, she isn't swinging through the city or changing into costumes, but instead focuses on stealth gameplay. Unlike previous versions of the character, this Mary Jane is an investigative reporter for the Daily Bugle, and she's willing to put in the work to find a good scoop. We took control of MJ as she sneaks through a museum. After successfully avoiding detection, she pieces together an Uncharted-esque statue puzzle to reveal a clue, but soon finds the museum packed with enemies. She eventually encounters Spider-Man, who helps clear out the building so she can get to safety. We didn't spend long as Mary Jane, but Intihar hinted at some really fun ways Spidey and MJ interact in later missions, so the door is open for plenty of interesting ways to switch between the two. See, my biggest question is, when it comes to Mary Jane, I mean, I'm really interested to see what kind of gameplay mechanics, and I think it's going to be very heavily stealth-based and what they're talking about here, and I think that's going to be really cool. I'm kind of maybe hoping for some investigation puzzles, like trying to put evidence together, like maybe something like Beautiful Minds, kind of like corkboard kind of thing. I think that could be really fun. But I think the most interesting bit was right here with how Spidey and MJ are going to react. My question is, does she know that Peter is Spider-Man? Does she know? Because if she knows, the ex-girlfriend thing is interesting. But if she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man, the whole ex-girlfriend thing becomes so much more interesting to me, because then he has to figure out how to react to her whilst it's still kind of being awkward for him, but she doesn't get the awkwardness. I think that could be really fun, depending on everything. But again, I don't think, as far as I know, that's not been revealed. So, all right, let's finish this off here. Finally, Insomniac has done a fantastic job of making New York feel alive, with pedestrians reacting to Spider-Man, with everything from jeers to applause to selfie requests. You can hack police radio towers to unlock points of interest on the map in New York's various districts, and each time you do, you'll find more opportunities to earn tokens and more side missions to help Spidey level up. There's still a lot to learn about Insomniac's vision for Spider-Man, but if these early hours are any indication, this could be one of the most exciting iterations of the web slinger we've seen in years for both the hero in the suit and the man behind the mask. I'm still super stoked. I mean, not a lot more to add to this other than September 7th. Yeah, September 7th, sorry. I for some reason, I always think September comes before August. I also might have a kind of a co-host for the first couple parts of that game, because I work with a guy, loves comic books, and I'm going to try and bring him in and see if he'll do some co-commentary with me when the game finally comes out. So, all right, guys, well, that's about do it for this week. Thank you for watching. As always, Facebook, Twitter, the website, minds.com. Links, all that stuff can be found down in the description below, along with links to every article we talked about here. For the rest of the day, expect a lot of This Is the Police. I have just been absolutely loving that game, and I'll probably be playing it a lot today. I'm not sure if I'll even do anything else. It's just I've been obsessed with this game for a while. So expect a lot of that. And other than that, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment if you're not already. Please subscribe to the channel. And until next time, my name's AJ Gels, the See On Third Gaming channel. I'm out.